this morning and lead a protest march to the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. They've called on South Africans to join the march, which is set to get underway at 9 o'clock. The ConCourt will hear arguments today on whether a secret ballot should be conducted when parliamentarians vote on a motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. The UDM, which filed the application, says it is confident that the Constitutional Court will rule in its favour. The party argues that some ANC MPs have received death threats amid speculation that they might vote with the opposition parties to have the president removed. President Zuma maintains that the court has no jurisdiction to hear the application, that the Constitution doesn't make provision for a secret vote against a sitting president. Let's cross over to Griselda Lewis now. She's at Mary Fitzgerald Square in Johannesburg, where the preparations for the march are underway. Griselda, it's, I suppose, just under an hour now before this march is set to start. Talk to us about the turnout. What's it looking like this morning?
Well, Leanne, just a handful of opposition party members and supporters have already started arriving here at the Mary Fitzgerald Square in the Johannesburg CBD. As you pointed out, of course, to march to the Constitutional Court starting at 9 o'clock this morning. Well, this is as, of course, the Constitutional Court hears that UDM application. Well, the UDM wants basically together, supported with other opposition party, wants the Constitutional Court to compel the National Assembly to have that no confidence vote against President Jacob Zuma to be held in secret ballot. And of course, one of the points that the UDM is making is that perhaps ANC MPs would be able to vote with their conscience if this vote of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma is held in secret ballot. And of course, one of the people that has been very outspoken about this entire saga is one of the ANC MPs, Makosi Khoza, who has already pointed out that she is in support of a secret ballot, and she's been very condemning of the current ANC leadership, and has basically indicated that she will not vote for an amoral leader, and has basically said she would vote for the survival of the ANC. So you'd recall, of course, in the run-up to this application being heard over the past couple of months, into the past couple of weeks, we've heard the EFF and other political parties, opposition political parties, indicate that they will be wooing ANC MPs to vote with them against President Jacob Zuma. Whether that will happen certainly remains to be seen, but this application will certainly pave the way on what exactly the National Assembly will then do. Of course, the papers that were filed by President Jacob Zuma do indicate that they do not see a basis for this application to be heard, and that the Constitution and the National Assembly rules do not make provision for a secret ballot. Those are some of the papers, of course, the details that we're expecting to come through in the Constitutional Court this morning. One of the political parties, of course, that's marching to the Constitutional Court, the Democratic Alliance. I'm joined now by the spokesperson for the DA leader, Musi Maimane. Mabine Siabe joins me this morning. Mr. Siabe, thank you very much for your time. Yet another call for President Jacob Zuma to resign. You are marching to the Constitutional Court this morning, hoping that it will compel the National Assembly to have the secret ballot go ahead.
Absolutely. We're not tired, we're not fatigued, we're pushing on until President Jacob Zuma steps down. It's rolling mass action until President Jacob Zuma is removed or steps down. And as opposition parties represented in Parliament, we've come together to speak with one voice, saying that President Jacob Zuma must go and South Africa must come first, because we cannot allow the union buildings to be occupied by a mafia boss who gets his orders from the Guptas. We can't allow the Constitution to be set aside by a man who has torn it up and now gets a prerogative from the Guptas, not the Constitution or the people of South Africa.
Well, one of the points that the UDM, for example, is making in this application is that, ANC MPs would face massive consequences, career-limiting consequences, if this vote is held in the open. And we're also hearing now one of the ANC MPs who has publicly come out and says she's been threatened as a result of her public sentiment going with the secret ballot, and saying that she would not vote for an amoral leader. Do you think perhaps that the Constitutional Court would take some of those issues into account in this call that you are making together with the UDM for there to be a secret ballot?
Well, these threats don't surprise us, because President Jacob Zuma is a mafia boss and has surrounded himself with criminals. Therefore, anyone opposed to him receives death threats, and is intimidated generally. Therefore, maybe ANC members will find solace in a secret ballot, but ultimately, regardless of the outcome of the Constitutional Court, we're going to accept it. And our call remains the same, that ANC members of parliament have a very deep choice to make, very profound choice to make. It's Zuma or South Africa. We can't allow the country and the constitution to be held hostage by one man when there are 55 million of us as South Africans who are saying Jacob Zuma cannot stand as the president no longer. President Jacob Zuma must go, because as long as President Jacob Zuma is in the union buildings, the project of building a better South Africa cannot happen.
Just very, very quickly, Mabini, we're really running out of time. Do you think there's enough dissent within the ANC to have this really go ahead? We've seen the public dissent by Makosi Khoza, but the ANC itself, President Jacob Zuma indicating yesterday he will go only if his party says he must go. Is there enough dissent within the ANC to vote with you as opposition parties when the day comes?
SACP, ANC, ConCourt have all come out guns blazing saying that Zuma must go, which means that there is a groundswell within the ANC itself. And the ANC must not see this as an opposition motion of no confidence. This is a people's motion of no confidence. The people of South Africa across race and class lines are saying that this man is destroying the country and we need to fight for it. We're going to continue with mass mobilization on the streets, in the courts and in parliament to ensure that Zuma goes.
Thank you very much for your time there. Mabine Siabe, who is the spokesperson for the DA leader Mmusi Maimane, saying there will be a massive rolling action until President Jacob Zuma resigns. We're expecting, though, this march to the Constitutional Court to get underway at 9 o'clock this morning, and those arguments will certainly be heard. And of course, these opposition parties, again, Leanne, saying they want the Constitutional Court to compel the National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete to have this no confidence vote against President Jacob Zuma to be held in secret ballot. We'll certainly bring you a whole lot more as we see more of the opposition party members arrive here at Mary Fitzgerald Square.
All right, Christopher Lewis, thanks very, very much. We'll try and catch up from you a little bit later on again in the programme. Moving now to the actual Constitutional Court case on the UDM's application for a secret vote in Parliament. Let's cross over to Aldrin St. Pierre at the ConCourt in Joburg. Aldrin, good morning. Let's take the story further. What's expected to happen inside the court this morning? We know what's happening outside, so let's talk about the details.
Well, good morning. Yes, what we expect is to hear the heads of arguments from all the political parties that have been cited as respondents. Nothing less than 13 respondents that have been listed in these court papers, including the ANC. However, the ANC has decided not to respond to this court application by the UDM. However, President Jacob Zuma, in his capacity as the president of the country as well as the president of the ANC, has responded and essentially is opposing the UDM's court application, arguing that Section 102 of the Constitution doesn't allow for a secret vote, while the UDM on the other side is arguing that if you read Section 102 of the Constitution in terms of a motion of no confidence against the president, the section only says, quote unquote, that the president can be removed by vote. And the UDM is arguing that by vote does not mean by open vote, it does not mean by closed vote or secret vote. That's essentially the argument that they're putting forward, and saying that Baleka Mbete, the Speaker of Parliament, has discretion around whether there should be a secret ballot or not when it comes to a motion of no confidence against the President. Baleka Mbete, on the other side of her arguments, she's arguing that even if the Constitutional Court comes to a finding that Rule 102 of the National Assembly as well as Rule 104 of the National Assembly is inconsistent with the Constitution, she should be allowed space to interpret the law and probably find a remedy to that, meaning that if the court finds that she does have discretion in terms of deciding whether there should be a secret ballot or not, she must do that, and it can't be the court that decides on whether, or can't be the court that forces her to conduct a secret ballot against the president. And a lot has been said, obviously, Leanne, around this case. A lot has been said around this case, not only a political case, but also legal arguments as well. And I remember reading a opinion piece written by political analyst Stephen Friedman, where he argues that even this Constitutional Court, if the ruling is that there should be a secret ballot, it would infringe on democracy, because the cornerstones of democracy democracy is around transparency. The cornerstones of democracy is around accountability. Now, how do people, the electorate, hold members of parliament accountable if there's no transparency? He even goes as far as arguing that when there are more than one person standing to become president of the country inside the National Assembly and there's a secret ballot, he says even that on its own infringes on the cornerstones of democracy, which is transparency and accountability. So certainly quite an interesting case, and we see that the arms or the lengths of the courts is really being stretched. Some arguing that there could be an argument around judicial overreach. President as well as Baleka Mbete arguing also on the separation of powers.
Right, Aldrin, thank you so much. We'll be crossing to Aldrin throughout the morning as to the developments that happen inside the Constitutional Court. But those, of course, are the two big stories that are being followed today, as well as the fact that Eskom